Hi. Jennifer says she makes wallpaper. This is what she says. Her paintings have no focal point. And when she tries to put something on it to stand out, it just sort of sits on top of the painting and is almost too dominant. And so she asked me what to do. Help, she said. So Jennifer, this is really common. In fact, I've made lots of beautiful wallpaper paintings. The painting, it might have beautiful texture, it might have lovely marks, beautiful colour, but there's nothing that sort of stands out. There's nothing memorable about it. It's just a repetition, which is what wallpaper is basically. It's just a repetition on a great roll, over and over and over again of the same effect all the way through. What it doesn't have is a hero. And it's a little bit like, imagine reading a short story or a book or something, and there's lots of observation, lots of context, descriptions of places and descriptions of people, but nothing actually ever happens. Or a movie that you're halfway into and suddenly you realise that actually that's got no story, nothing's happened. Or a song, music that you're listening to, and when it's switched off you can't remember anything about it. It doesn't have a tune, it doesn't have anything that hooks you in. So all these things are examples of wallpaper type art. And they can have a lot going for them, but they just don't have anything that has any sort of punch. That they don't have a focal point, they don't have maybe a subject, they don't have a story, they don't have something that's memorable. We need a hero in our work, and in abstract art a hero can be absolutely anything. It can be a colour, it can be a mark or a type of mark, it can be a shape or a combination of shapes, it can be a line, it can be a type of surface effect, it can be a pattern, it can be a combination of any of those things. The world's your oyster with art, really, not just abstract art. So, but what you do need to do is you need to make a decision about what is going to be your hero. And it's not, in my case, when I do my paintings, it's not a decision I make at the beginning of the painting, it's a decision I make after I've built up a surface and sort of created the wallpaper. Then I have to think, now what is this painting going to be about? What is the highlight? What am I going to bring out in this painting and make it really shine? And I kind of liken this analogy to a choir. When you listen to a choir sing a piece of music, there are different parts. You have the sopranos and the altos and the tenors and the bass and the mezzo-sopranos and whatever else you can have. My knowledge isn't that great, but you have different parts and they all sing their part to create the sound that is the music. When you're listening to the choir, you don't just listen to the altos, or you just listen to the sopranos, or you just listen to the bass. You listen to the sounds all together, and that sound is the song. Now, what can happen is one of those parts can carry the melody, and then that part is perhaps the star. It's carrying the melody, it holds the tune, and the rest of them are supporting that, providing the backing and providing the richness that tune can sit in. Or you can get some soloists in, and the soloists provide, are the stars, and then behind them are the choir and all the various parts, and they play their part to back and support what the soloist sings. So when you've got your painting in front of you, you're having to decide, what are the star players? Who are the stars? Do you have just one soloist? Do you have a couple? Do you have, and then which are the supporting players? What's the sort of, in ballet terms, what's the corps de ballet, and who are the principals, basically? So at some stage in the process of the painting, you have to decide what your hero is going to be, or what are your star players. And equally, you have to decide what is not going to be dominant, not going to be a hero, and needs to stand back a bit and be supportive of your star players. So you need to decide what your painting is about. And it might be about a certain colour. It might be, you might want your viewer to experience the feeling of that colour. Or it might be a type of line or a shape or a combination of shapes, or a certain texture, or it can be absolutely anything, but you need to decide what this painting is going to be about. Once you've decided what the painting is going to be about, what's the hero or the star player in your painting, then you need to make sure that it's clear for the viewer, that they're not going to be distracted. It's a bit like in the choir. If you have a soloist and suddenly there's someone of part or someone singing behind in the chorus that is singing too loud and sort of drowning out the soloist, suddenly you've got a sort of a fighting for attention. You want to make sure that it's very clear to the viewer what your painting is about, what you love in your painting, and what you're trying to show to the viewer, what it is that you love in your painting. Another example might be that you want to show complexity and detail in your painting. So one way of doing that is having the whole painting complex in detail, or you make sure that you put next to the complexity simpleness, so that complexity is really looking very complex next to the stillness and the quietness and this sort of spaciousness that you have around it. Let the viewer see what that complexity looks and feels like next to that stillness and spaciousness. It's a bit if we go back to our analogy of the choir, if you have your soloist singing the melody or their part, and you have the whole of the choir singing the same part, you're not going to hear the soloist. It's all going to mesh together. So you need them to stand out. You need to have something that you need the soloist to be different. So our heroes have to be different. However, they have to still relate. So back to our choir analogy, the soloist is singing the melody, but the choir, all the other parts, are all singing in the same key. If the soloist is so different from the choir, it's going to sound discordant. So there has to be a relationship between the two. They must be different, but they must also relate. So maybe your hero is a certain shape. The colour of that shape is also repeated elsewhere in the painting, so that there is something in common, but it's also different. So another way might be of having something, your hero, and then bringing a little bit of the what's around it, sort of slightly overlapping, or just integrating it somehow. This is a really fine balancing act, because you don't want the choir to upstage or dominate or sing too loudly. You still want to hear that soloist sing, but you've got to make sure that they have that common ground. So when our hero is in relationship with the rest of the painting, it's integrated, and it won't feel like it's sitting on top. It will be integrated, and the whole thing will work together. Just as with that choir, the soloist and all those different parts are all making that one sound that you can close your eyes and just listen to. It's the same thing with the painting. Your heroes and all the other parts of the painting are all coming together. They're all integrated. They all have something in common, but your star players or heroes have something different that is making them stand out a little bit more, making them be noticed a little bit more. So questions to ask yourself when you're sort of trying to get this balancing act going. Is it clear to the viewer what this painting is about? Or is there an element of confusion? Is there something that's distracting and taking the eye away from and being too dominant? So you need clarity around what the painting is about. Which parts of the painting are going to carry the most weight and which parts are supporting that? So if you have something that is, if it's all about colour and you've got these lovely beautiful colours working, have you got too much colour? Are there colours in there that are distracting and not actually supporting that main colour that you're trying to make the viewer notice? Do I have some members of my choir singing too loudly? Are there distracting elements in your painting? Remember, you're after clarity so that a person standing in front of your painting for the first time can feel exactly what this is all about. They don't feel confused. They're not trying to figure out. They can just experience it. And if you can answer all those questions, yes, yes, and yes, then you've probably achieved that balancing act. You haven't created wallpaper and you have some lovely heroes in your painting. But maybe you have one hero that's a little bit stronger. So we don't want Spider-Man and Batman fighting it out on your picture plane. Have you got my free mark-making prompt sheet yet? I have put together a prompt sheet that has over 50 ideas for line, texture, tools, applying paint. There's lots and lots of ideas there. So if you're working in the studio and you get stuck for an idea what to do on your painting, you can just refer to that and it will spark something and give you an idea. You need never be stuck for an idea again. So it's free, download it, and it's my gift to you. And also I have a thriving, wonderful community called the Upbeat Artist Group on Facebook, and if you're not a member of that, then you need to be. It's a wonderful group of really supportive, fantastic artists in there. The artwork is just amazing, and you can really get lost in it. So much inspiration. Make sure that you join up in the Upbeat Artists as well. Okay, I hope you have a happy painting week.